Okay, I'm pleased to be back to meet my honorable and lovely class. And today, the business school has been graced with a singular honor of having a very renowned consultant in business management, marketing, and advertising to be with us. She's in a person as Simone Bresi-Ando. And if you don't have any of her brief overview, let me know so I'll give you a few copies. You want her cards? Okay, the cards are going to only the ladies. Oh. No, and the gentlemen who matter. I'll come around and be giving now. If you ask a question, we'll give you one. Okay. The rest have been giving the class reference. Hold on. Anyway, what we're going to do is that we are going to have an interesting discussion that is going to actually extend what we have been discussing on digital firms, how today's firms do business. And what she is a very good follow-up for what you have done. So today we're not talking about last week's test. We'll talk about it next week. Anyway, I know some people's faces are looking at. I thought I was going to give an answer. No test today, but I'll test you on this next week. Anyway, so Bresi has been working in both the public sector and the private sector globally. She began her career working as the personal secretary to the Right Honorable John Prescott. Those who remember, the Deputy Prime Minister in the UK. And so, will you be happy that while the guy was coming on TV, there was a Ghanaian woman behind there. There's a Ghanaian woman, not any woman, but there's a Ghanaian woman behind it. It's quite interesting. I was very honored to meet up with her. You see, she's going to Frankie's. I met her at Frankie's. It has been a very, very interesting moment since I met her. Anyway, okay, no, Frankie's the lounge, not the outside.
Something they inside.
That's your business school. No, when a business school to the lounge.
Something inside.
Okay, anyway. She's also worked as a global PR for Sony Ericsson. And that's one of the things that's going to talk about, especially those who work in marketing, international marketing companies like the telecoms and the Ghana government. Anyway, so what she'll be doing is that she'll give you an exposition of her career, then she'll delve into what global marketing and the new dimensions that are coming because of digital media and because of the changing patterns of consumer behavior. Which you need to respond to, especially because of the fact that if you don't respond to, your company may be left behind. And the fact that you can be doing something in your country, you think it may be just localized, but it's just because of the internet, the whole thing goes global. So you should be taking examples from experience. And I'm happy to see some Sony fans here. I see Sony Vile here. Can you just give away? I think she has some Sony products. I'm just joking. So after that, I would encourage every group to ask questions because this is very open. Sometimes you may not get this opportunity unless you go and sit at the places I say. Anyway, but I'm very happy, and I'm also extending you. Whenever you have an executive visiting your company and you want him to come to class or come to a business school, we are always open to that. And it doesn't need to be an executive, but if any person that you think that you want to share something from your experience, we like the practical aspect of teaching. So I'll try to make a time for it. She's on a tight schedule. She's leaving next week. So I try my best to fit her in within this week's schedule. I'm not going to take the wind out of her sail. I'm very happy. So Simon, welcome to Ghana.
Hello.
You are Ghanaian already.
Thank you.
And my honorable class.
Hi everybody, it's really great to be here. Good evening. Richard, thank you again for allowing me to speak. Richard's given me a glowing reference actually, so I need to explain why I'm actually standing in front of you right now. I guess it's because I'm a bit relentless. When I want something, I go for it and I make sure I get it. And I'm very much about defining success on my own terms, and I found that that's helped me win throughout my career, from leaving university to the point I am now, where I started my own global PR consultancy. So as Richard was saying, my first role out of university was as the personal secretary for the Deputy Prime Minister. And it was great being at the heart of the government at such a young age and seeing how a country is run. And it was also an eye-opener into exactly where I wanted to be and the kind of seats of power that I also wanted to hold within myself. But it wasn't what I learned. What I did learn was communications, culture and media. I studied that at Coventry University. And the reason why I was always focused on PR and media is because I was mesmerised by it by a young child. I loved dancing, I loved singing, but in Britain I didn't really see many people who looked like me on TV. I didn't really understand why. Sorry, I forgot to press the button. It works. I think you might have to do it. But I was saying that I was just motivated because I didn't see many people who looked like me. And then when I did see people who looked like me on TV, it wasn't the most positive of roles. So I was very, very, very moved to make sure that we readdressed that balance and started showing representations that were realistic and ones that also were positive and showed us in a better light. So that's really my motivation for a lot of the things that I've done. So, where do we start? And excuse me if I'm tapping away and I'm ducking up and down. So first of all, please feel free to stop me and ask me questions as we go along. I don't want to just talk at you. It's a conversation, okay? That's what I do best, I talk. As my mum says on each of my school reports, it says I talk, and that's how I'm making my living. So please, let's exchange. I started, at the same time as working for the Deputy Prime Minister, I started my own PR and events company called Push. And it was mainly focused on music, and I worked with Grammy Award winners like Estelle and Floetry, and I basically gave a platform for unsigned acts to perform and kind of get their art out there, because the music industry, as we know, is something that is very shark-filled and it wasn't really lending itself to real talent. So I felt that there was a real gap in the market to actually get real talent on the stage where people can see them live and direct. And so, this one back. Thank you, I can do it now. This is me. I think age 3 in London. So basically, from there I was able to make a lot of networks within the music and entertainment industry, and I've learned that from when I went to Sony Ericsson, they were to help me once again with who I knew, and they were able to help me produce some of the stunts, the PR stunts that I've done for the brand, and we're going to look at those a little later. Okay, so after working with the Deputy Prime Minister, I actually got a communications role in the housing sector, in the public housing sector. And so I worked for numerous housing associations, moved on to the councils and worked within their housing departments. And even though it really wasn't all the glitz and the glamour, it certainly did teach me what it was to be a good communicator. The types of people that were living in social housing, very diverse. A lot of them had English as a first language. Some of the educational attainment was from having a master's degree to being illiterate. So I had to be a good communicator. I had to know how to engage everybody at every level. And that's where I really cut my teeth in being a communicator that could engage people that were as diverse as the bunch that we were dealing with. I worked for Hackney Council, I also worked for Southwark Council, and they were both one of the biggest landlords in the borough. They all had about 33,000 properties, around that much each. So this was a huge income generator for the council, so the housing department was very important. And it was also a legal demand on us that we had to communicate to our residents, so it was very important that the communications were up to scratch. When I joined Hackney, it was a failing housing service. So it was really up to me to turn it around, turn the perception around and get people to engage again. And after doing this through communication, we were able to get 2 stars and really turn it around. And this was through making sure we had a 2-way communication stream. And we're going to sort of look at what 2-way communication streams mean and how important it is when you're communicating or trying to get your brand to engage with consumers. So my last role in local government was as the corporate communications manager of okay, cool. So yeah, my last role was as the corporate communications manager of Southwark Council, and basically my remit there was to engage more with the private sector and make them invest more into what was happening in the London Borough of Southwark. It was a great role, but I also spied another role that I really wanted, and that was as the corporate global PR manager for Sony Ericsson. So once again, my taste for everything Sony, entertainment and music was alive again, and I went for it, and I got it. And it was a huge leap, going from working for about 7 years in the public sector and then jumping over to a global brand, which at that point was number 3 in the world for producing mobile phones. And I was 28 at the time, so it was a huge move, and I was highly, highly proud of myself. And what I was able to achieve and what I was also able to learn there was really how brands engage with their consumers. And it's not only their consumers, but it's their great stakeholder groups. So these are the industry analysts, people who have the knowledge to talk about their business, and sometimes the press bypass the company and go to your industry analysts. This was also journalists, top journalists, financial journalists, people who would look at the finances of our business as well as the product side of our business. And then I also had the remit of CSR, which was really important. Sony Ericsson was one of the greenest mobile phone brands that we had out there. They were the first to start taking out a lot of the poisonous chemicals that were in the phones. And it's particularly important to Africa because this is where phones are often broken down. And they're broken down in a way that can be harmful for the people opening up the phones and using, getting in contact with these toxic chemicals. So we were quite proud of the work we did there because we actually spearheaded a lot of other companies to follow suit and make sure they were taking these hazardous chemicals out. But then again, we had much to do. We flew most of our products from China around the world, so we had a huge carbon footprint. But we certainly tried our best to make sure we were as green as possible. I then was handed the brief of looking after the global sponsorship property of women's tennis. And this is where I did PR stunts. So my remit was to make sure that our consumers knew and the world knew that Sony Ericsson sponsored women's tennis. We were the biggest sponsors in women's sport in the world. At the time when we signed this, I think in 2005, we spent $88 million for a 6-year contract. What I can say is that if you're thinking of getting into sports sponsorship, make sure it's not 6 years. Times are changing very rapidly. Make sure that you've got a deal where you can be as flexible and the sponsorship property can be as flexible with you as well. Also make sure it's something that is aligned with your brand, your core messages and your consumers. Tennis I don't know if you think, what do you think? Do you think tennis was really the right choice for a brand like Sony Ericsson? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Well, in London, tennis is sort of the preserve of the upper class. And Sony Ericsson was quite a youthful brand, something that, you know, kids would use. It was laden with technology. And so it was quite a male sort of centered brand as well. So a lot of people didn't see the synergy. But the real point of signing this kind of deal was to make sure we could grow our brand globally, and tennis enabled us to do so. It's played all around the world every year, and every time that it went to a different part of the world, we were there doing a PR stunt such as this. So I think we might show the first one. So just to explain, this is traffic tennis, and I worked with Venus Williams and Andy Murray, and I stopped traffic in the middle of Ocean Drive in Miami, which is an iconic drive, and we got them to play tennis on top of 2 SUVs. So just see how it went down.
Popular pastime in Miami. But in this instance, the centre of attention weren't the cars, but the tennis players inside them. Andy Murray and Venus Williams, who arrived in South Beach to play a game of traffic tennis to promote the start of the Sony Ericsson Open.
Yikes, this has to be the most craziest place I've ever played tennis, definitely on top of the car.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, obviously the last 5-6 months I got to do sort of more of these sorts of things, and yeah, obviously good fun. Nice to sort of take your mind away from tournaments all the time.
The publicity stunts certainly pulled in the crowds. Many of whom will certainly be going to Crowden Park this week for the start of the tournament. The traffic may have came to a standstill for the time Williams and Murray hit with each other, but the publicity was priceless.
Yeah, promotions like this are excellent for tennis. I think it's great to have sponsors like Sony Ericsson who really make things happen like this. So everyone sees tennis and everyone kind of feels like they're part of something special.
Yeah, it was good fun. A little bit intimidating at first, with a lot more people than I expected, but no,